Check, check, check.
Welcome to the yard, where how I see it and how you see it, they never have to be the same. This is a safe space where you can share how you see things. You're watching How I See It TV.
Check, check, check. Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to everyone. Whether you're at home, you're already at work, you're on your way to work. If you're snowed in, I'm so sorry. Again, I'm still complaining that it is cold. It is cold in South Florida, but I am grateful because I can't imagine having to dig myself out of snow. But I came to say yesterday, oh, before I do that, please remember to like this video or this live if you're here, if you're here watching me live. But if you're catching the replay, please remember to like this video, share the link to my channel if you feel like the content needs some more crowd. Subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, now called X at How I See It, and on TikTok at How I See It TV. So yesterday during my lunchtime live, if you didn't catch it, I was talking about the traders, and I got myself mixed up because after watching the episode, I was thinking that there could have been a tie and they would have been able to vote Rob out. Because remember, Rob is a traitor, right? But then I got myself mixed up and I was like, no, I'm wrong. They couldn't have, even if they tried. But I was right. See, if Tara and Johnny had managed to get Mark Bayless, or whatever his last name is, on their side, that would have been 4 votes for Rob to be banished, right? And if Rob, Eric, and Mara had voted for what's her name, Natalie, then Rob would have still had a second vote, right? Because he had the dagger. So he would have had 2 votes. So that would have made 4 votes. They would have flushed out the use of the dagger, right? So Rob would have lost the use of the dagger. There would have been a tie, 4 for Rob, 4 for Natalie. And so there would have to be a tiebreaker, right? And when the tiebreaker would have, if they had done it this way, when they got to the tiebreaker, it would have been up to Tara, Natalie, Johnny, and Eric to, well, no, they wouldn't need to convince anybody because the 4 of them, Tara, Natalie, Johnny, and Mark, would have had the numbers on their side because Rob, would have only had 3 people. So I wish they would have been smart enough to stick to the plan. I wish Tara would have been more confident to stick to the plan that she came up with Natalie. But I don't know. I'm thinking to myself, the way Johnny and Tara are playing the game, right? It almost feels like they're traitors. Like we know that they are faithfuls, but it's almost as if they're playing the game like, listen, we're best friends. We are an alliance. We know that neither of us are traitors. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it to the end. We don't care about the other faithfuls. And when we make it to the end, then we kick who we think the traitor is. We point out who we think the traitor is. And to me, if faithfuls are playing the game like that, it almost feels like they're traders too, you know? And I think it's okay if it's all about the money for you. There's some people who are on the traders cast who are literally in it for the money. And then there are other people who they were just doing this, for promotion. Like I feel like Candace, she didn't go on this show for the money. She went for promotion. Lisa Rinna, I think she went on the show for promotion. But I do feel like people like Colton and Natalie and, maybe even Rob, I feel like they joined the cast of Traders for the money. So it's okay if you're playing like that. But at the least, still have a little bit of a moral compass when you're playing the game. I feel like if you are a trader, stay true to the traders. And if you're a faithful, stay true to the faithfuls. I hated that Rob, there was no reason. I could understand him, you know, no, I still can't understand that. I don't care if there were fingers pointed towards Lisa Rinna. I feel like the traders should have stuck together. Rob has so much trust in that castle that I feel like if he wanted to, he could have gotten the eyes off of Lisa. And if he wanted to, he could have had Candace's back in the same way he's like, oh, I gotta have Eric's back. But those are just my thoughts. So I just wanted to say I was right. If they had voted, if if Mark, Natalie, Tara, and Johnny had all voted for Rob, and Mara, Eric, and Rob had voted for Natalie, and Rob used his dagger vote, it would have been 4 for 4. There would have been a tie. There would have to be another vote to break the tie, and Rob would have been sent home, and then Eric would have been the only traitor left, and I think they would have gotten him out eventually. Or he would have recruited maybe Natalie, maybe Mark, I don't know, to be another traitor. And then that would have been like a whole other thing. But I was right. I was right yesterday. Quickly, I want to talk about the T.I. and 50 Cent foolishness. I have decided that I'm not even going to engage anymore with that foolishness. Like before, I was on I was on Instagram and I was responding to like comments and I was giving my thoughts. But then I started to feel like both T.I. and 50 Cent are corny in this entire situation. So I'm team none of them. I like 50 Cent. I like T.I. You know, Ti, he has a little some skeletons in his closets in several places. I can't forget that there were about 20 women who came out and accused him and his wife of you know sexual assault and retaliation and all kinds of stuff. And the only reason why one of the case that was brought against them was thrown out was because the girl was too afraid to go to court. It wasn't thrown out because they found them innocent of all charges. It was thrown out because the woman who was taking them to court, the judge said at that point in time, the statute of limitation had run out on her case, and the girl was too scared to go to court. So I've always side-eyed Ti and Tiny for that. And the thing about that girl with the court saying that the statute of limitation had run out um at that point in time, the judge said that if something changed within the law, she could bring her case back to the courts. Now, if you realize with like Cassie and all those people who brought Diddy to court, it was because the law changed as it relates to sexual violence. So that is why they were able to sue um Sean Combs, right? So if that young lady who initially reported Ti and Tiny decides that she is strong enough mentally and she's no longer afraid to go through with this process, she can always go back to court. But some of the women who accused T.I. and Tiny of rape, kidnapping, drugging them, and all kinds of stuff, they all said that they were afraid because they were being intimidated. There was some intimidation tactics in play and all kinds of stuff. So I've always side-eyed them for that because no court ever said that they were innocent. The one case that was filed against them, It was thrown out because the of limitation at that point in time had run out. But now that the laws have changed, if the girl decides to go back to court, who knows what evidence, can be presented that proves that she and the 20 other women who talked about these things when it comes to Ti and Tiny are actually telling the truth. I do feel like sometimes 50 Cent, he takes the trolling a little bit too far. I don't care if I like you or not. If I feel like you're doing team too much, then I'm going to say that. And I do feel like sometimes I think he's being funny. I honestly feel like 50's being funny. I just feel like he finds it all funny, but you need to know that there's always a limit. And it's okay to say, this is my line and I'm not going to cross it. And I just feel like he doesn't have that line. And sometimes it just comes off as just corny to me. Like sitting down, going back and forth with T.I.'s son online, that's corny to me. T.I. begging 50 Cent for a verses and whining about it because 50 doesn't want to do it, that's corny to me. I don't feel like any of T.I.'s songs. He might have maybe 4 or 5 good songs that could compete with 50 Cent's catalog. But I do think that 50 Cent has the better catalog. And I don't feel like 50 Cent and T.I. in terms of the industry, I don't think that they're on the same level. I think 50 Cent is more of the commercial, mainstream hip hop artist, whereas T.I., even though he has a couple mainstream songs, he is more like the underground, hip hop artist who is known very well in his city. But if you go to like my country, Jamaica, they probably only know 3 songs from T.I. They probably know Rubber Band Man, I don't know. Maybe they know the song with Rihanna, and maybe they know one other song and don't even know that it's a T.I. song. And that's how I measure it when it comes to the verses. I don't think about it from the American standpoint only. I think about it from an international standpoint. Who is more widely known? Whose music is more widely known? And I feel like if we're going to talk about a verses in terms of 50 Cent, the only person I could honestly, feel like would be an equal match would probably be a Jay-Z. I feel like when it comes to Ti, if he was like, "Oh, I want to do a verses with the game," I could understand that. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Ti asking for a versus battle with 50 Cent is like the game asking for a versus battle with Jay-Z. It just doesn't make sense. And I do feel like T.I. was trying to ride the 50 Cent wave for his comeback. And I didn't like that. I felt like T.I. came out with a great song, Riding to the Czechoslovakia. I feel like he came out with a good song and he could have used his own wave to push the momentum for this new project that he's coming out with. He didn't need to hop on the, oh, I'm going to troll with 50 Cent because we know 50 is going to respond and he's going to keep trolling. And if we keep trolling each other, then my name is going to stay in the media. I don't think T.I. needed to do that. I don't think he needed to do that. And so him doing that just, I don't know, it's like, ew, to me. That's how I feel about it. You said 50 is a bully and folks think that he what he does is funny while bringing women in his BS with men. For the most part, honestly, 50 Cent keeps it to the men. I think the only 2 times that we have seen him bring women into stuff is with Clarissa Shield, with him, and Papoose going at it. And that was another weird thing to me because I don't understand why Papoose, was trying to beef with 50. Like you did one song trying to be for the life of me, I don't understand why so many of the men in hip hop had an issue with the Diddy documentary. If you say you don't stand for what Diddy did or what, all the things that he's been accused of, then it shouldn't matter who did the documentary. And I think that 50 Cent's documentary was very fair. It was very fair in its analysis of the entire Diddy situation, because if 50 wanted to be petty, it could have been more one sided than it was. You understand? And then all these men, I didn't understand why Ja Rule had all this issue with, with 50 doing the documentary, when there are questionable things that was happening in Murder Inc. We heard Ashanti come out with her accusations against Irv Gotti. A woman a few years ago sued Irv Gotti for SA. And even when Ashanti came out and talked about all the things that Irv did to her, Ja Rule never said, you know what, I stand against that when it comes to my sister Ashanti. So uh, I was like, oh, so we know how all of y'all get down. 50s, all of 50s secrets that have all been splashed across the media. But I do think that there are a lot of rappers, all their dirt has been splashed across the media in the way that all of 50 Cent's actions have been splashed across, things with his baby mom, the accusation of him, allegedly burning the house down and all kinds of stuff. And I remember when the beef started between 50 Cent, his baby mama, and his eldest son. And I honestly felt like the baby mama was feeding the son negativity about his dad. I remember watching that all play out, the text messages, the voicemails. And I didn't feel like 50 was wrong. And I heard 50 Cent explain, all that he's tried to do for his eldest son financially. And who knows if he's telling the truth or not. But the way 50 Cent makes it sound is like the boy feels like, if my dad is 50 Cent, I shouldn't have to work. I should just be able to live off whatever money he's giving me. You know? I even remember, I think her name is, I don't remember 50 Cent's baby mama's name. I remember she called into a radio show 50 Cent was on, and she was talking about how, well, if you're 50 Cent, like, my son should have 50 pair of Jordans. And I was like, oh, so that's her mentality. I'm going to find that clip and repost it. So I get both sides of it, and we're not going to pretend like in the Black community there are not situations where a mom will turn their child against their father. And of course, fathers just abandoning their children because they're no longer with the mom. I always believe it's 50-50, no pun intended. You know what I mean? But as I said, I'm clocked out of the 50 Cent T.I. thing, because I think 50 did take it too far, bringing Tiny into it. Like, Tiny literally minds her business. She doesn't bother anybody. So I don't think he should have dragged her into it. And I hope that there is somebody on 50 Cent's team. He respects Eminem. He respects what's his name? I don't remember his name. I don't remember the next person in his team. But there are a couple people on his team that he respects. And I hope one of them can say to him, yo, you kind of took that too far. Like, Tiny don't bother nobody. Be man enough to apologize. In the same way that he apologized to Ashanti when him and Nelly had beef, I hope that he can be man enough to apologize to Tiny, because she really didn't deserve that. I don't think she deserves that. And because of that, I'm like checked out on this, because I believe that both sides are corny for this whole mess. But anyways, y'all, thank you for tuning in. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, now called X, at How I See It, and on TikTok at How I See TV. I promised that I was going to be a little bit more consistent in putting out content, and I'm trying to stick to that. So thank you for tuning in. Until my next video, walk good. Bye.